Board of Selectmen of the town of Canaan at 8:33 on July 12th, 2022. I'll make a statement before we start because we are not voting on a cell tower plan today. We will discuss the plan today, and we will discuss it again in 2 weeks. So we'll discuss it again in August. I talked to Christina Parkhill, who's here this morning. You know, we're going to have a 90-day process to talk about this west side location. And as from our discussion today, you'll see that we have a long way to go to understand what our options are for the west side. So with that statement, be happy to take public. Well, first of all, our minutes from our last meeting on June 28th. First of all, Kathleen is on remotely, so we have a quorum.
Good morning, Kathleen. It's 4:30. Her time.
Where is she?
Alaska.
Alaska. That'd be 4:30.
Kath, you're on mute.
It's not 4:30 in Alaska.
I think it is.
No. Or in the afternoon?
Morning. Went to Vancouver.
Oh, Vancouver's ahead of us.
It's earlier. Anyway.
Oh, 4:30. Oh, it's 8:30, 4:30.
Kathleen, I assume
Oh,
you're
yeah.
telling us you're good to go.
All right, got it.
Is she on mute?
She's on mute and she knows she's on mute, but she
Oh,
looks
okay.
like she's struggling. So she's not acknowledging that she can hear us. You have to get sign language. Okay, I think we're good to go.
Is she good to go? Kathleen?
I think she's having trouble.
Can you talk? Can you hear?
You can hear her.
Technical difficulties. Okay. You can't vote then.
She can vote. She can hear us.
Uh-oh. Okay. The minutes of our last meeting on June 28th. Any comments or corrections?
None here.
Kathleen? All right. I move we approve the minutes of the June 28th meeting. Second. All in favor? Aye. Raise your hand, Kathleen.
We're not.
If it's unanimous. Okay, that's the rule. If it's unanimous, we don't need to take a roll call. Public comments. Members of the public are welcome to provide comments to the Board of Selectmen on agenda topics scheduled for review and or vote. Comments submitted electronically should be sent to the following email address, bosdistribution@nucanasct.gov. And if we receive any, we'll read them in the course of the meeting or before the end of the meeting. So public comment. Nice.
Jane? Yes.
Are we doing it at the podium or at the desk? At one of the microphones.
I've lived in a lot of towns.
Excuse me one second. We have to amend the agenda to add an item. Correct?
Yes.
So I move amend the agenda to add the Waveney House Bluestone Walkways project. Second. All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Okay. And we'll add that before the library loan documentation. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I've lived in a lot of towns like New
You need to
Canaan.
identify yourself.
My name is Jane Raveret. I've lived in a lot of towns like New Canaan, wealthy towns, towns with good school districts, towns with large houses. And I see absolutely nothing here that compares to what I've seen in other governments. I believe that what I'm seeing here is complete disregard for the people who live here and absolutely no openness about this process whatsoever. I'm ashamed that my first selectman does not protect the rights of the people who live here, the children, the parents, the families who have chosen to live here, who are the next generation, who are not your generation. And I understand that the LLC that has been formed to do the Ponus Tower deal is constituted of people who know you well. And so I question, is this a corrupt situation? where you have told your cronies how they can make money by going to a woman who was selling her house, she thought, to the land trust. And they had previously rejected all offers for any other thing to happen on that property that had to do with the cell tower because they wanted to preserve that land. And then your cronies just happened to find out that they can do a secret backdoor deal, put this together and make a bunch of money on it. So I would like to know what your relationship with the people in that LLC are. I would also like to know what the other profiteers of these cell towers are, because quite clearly they make an extraordinary amount of money. And if this is your swan song for getting out of New Canaan, where you as an older white male are deciding that you are going to get everybody who you know wealthy in this position, then I don't think you're focusing on the right thing. I also feel that there has been no due diligence here in regard to what is supposed to happen with a cell tower. It is not necessary to put up gigantic industrial looking things all over town that cause tremendous concern to the constituents. What is possible is to look at alternatives, and I certainly hope you'll do that. And when it comes to public safety, I would say that on Dan's Highway, where we have all expressed our disapproval of this entire situation, you have also completely neglected perhaps the worst part of public safety, which is that when the house across the street from me burned to the ground, there was every possibility to save it. There were multiple fire trucks there. All the emergency services were called. And I watched as a fireman sat next to an empty hose that they had to carry all the way down the street. And Dan's Highway is a huge street, and put in the pond so that they could get water. Since then, my neighbors, the Larsons and the Gardners, have told me that they've offered multiple times to, prior to that incident and after that incident, to put in a fire hydrant, and you've done nothing. So before you start talking about public safety and what's necessary, let's talk about what's really necessary. Great, you can call for the fire, but the house burns down because you don't put a water hydrant in. So I am just disgusted by what I've seen here, and I just can't believe that you have behaved this way. Shame on you.
They have the giant glasses. I'm Barbara Wills, and I, along with a number of other concerned citizens, have put together, did you give this to them?
I did.
Okay. So you have, it's covered with a photo of the area that gives you an idea of the height. That photo shows the water tower just peeping out over the trees. And that's, I believe, a 65-foot height, the tower, or tank, I guess it's called. And I want to tell you, I'm grateful that you're slowing the process down. I really am, because it needs a lot of discussion. It needs a lot of questions to be answered. This is just the tip of the iceberg as far as the questions people have. And I'm not going to spend the entire morning reading them all. You all are going to be able to read them yourself, but know that this is what we all want to know, the answers to these questions. But the first one that I'm going to read out is the most important one, I think. At the previous meeting on June 28th, it was mentioned that the lease was going to be put to a vote on July 12th. Does that mean that the placement of a tower at this property has been agreed to and closed? If so, when did that happen, and what are the details of the agreement? How has Homeland Towers been able to list 769 Ponus and Irwin Park as locations that they service? It's on their website. If a lease is granted and the cell tower is denied, does that lease expire, or can they keep trying until the lease term expires? So all of the rest of these questions could take a long time, but I just wanted to have those things read out loud for all the people that are at home that don't have access to this document. If they would like to have it, I will be absolutely they can get in contact with Tucker Murphy. She has a copy of the questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vidas Uzgiris. I want to specifically address the topic of need. I sincerely don't think that it's needed. I don't think it adds to safety or even convenience. I think we've got fine reception, good enough. And what I don't hear being discussed in the back and forth on this, the little back and forth, is that satellite technology is really replacing cell phone towers. I see you have a smile. Maybe you have thought of it. But the fact is that, we have Satellite X, Elon Musk's company, which is launching 10,000 satellites in the short term, has contracted and gotten approval from the FCC to put 40,000 up. Amazon is following suit. And there's another OneWeb that's backed by Europe's Airbus that's doing the same. And there are other smaller players. It's a huge infrastructure, which means that's going up, that's already committed to. And that means that, by the economics of the situation, the satellite bandwidth is going to get very, very cheap. So within years, I mean, it's already available. It's still a little bit expensive, but within years, it's going to get dirt cheap. And let me add that Apple was planning on the iPhone 13 to have satellite capabilities, but they decided not to put it in. The time wasn't ripe yet, but it's there. It's waiting to be available as soon as the prices of satellite communications come down, and it's gonna plummet, within years. So what this means I really don't buy the idea that there is a need for the satellite towers. I believe that it's about the money. And let's say it's really about the town collecting the rent money. It's, that's a valid argument, but these guys, they're going to be bankrupt in, 5 years. I don't know. You will not be collecting the rent money.
We're not motivated by rent money.
Sorry?
We're not motivated by rent money. Yeah.
Okay. Well, in that case, there's
Well,
absolutely no need for it.
Right.
And, the fact is that you will then end up with a liability on your hands. They will not be there. They'll be taking up the land. They'll be bankrupt. They will not be maintaining the towers, and you will be in charge of trying to figure out the hazards of a decaying tower and how to take it down.
Thank you.
I rest my peace.
This is for Kathleen.
Good morning, Selectmen. I want to echo the comments of the previous speakers. And I'm here today to
Excuse
say
me,
that
can you
there is
just
no-
state your name and your
Oh.
address, sir?
My name is Joseph Paulo from Arrowhead Trail. There is no basis in fact for a cell tower at West School. There is, however, proof of substantial cell service all along Ponus Ridge at West School and east of the school. Here are the facts. The 2015 plan that Mr. Moynihan refers to is anchored in the 2014 Centerline study. That study called for doing a second assessment after Silver Hill was opened. That assessment was never done. There was never been an assessment of the Armory Tower coming online. There has never been an assessment of the Soundview Tower coming online. And there's been no consideration assessed for improvements in Locust Avenue or mini cell sites that have been put up around the town at St. Ponus Ridge and the Merritt Parkway, improvements in surrounding communities. So the Centerline study and the plan of 7 years ago are invalid because they have absolutely not accounted for most of the cellular infrastructure that's in our town today. In addition, and contrary to that, there is publicly available information that I've provided you in this package showing that AT&T and starting with Verizon has good cell phone coverage, 4G, for most of the area in question, and 5G as well, as does AT&T specifically all along Ponus Ridge, as do independent third-party providers assessing New Canaan cell service, which rate us rather high. They rate Verizon at 8.9, AT&T at 8.6. I also want to say, so in the absence of the centerline study being valid and in the present of publicly available information, which I remind everyone, AT&T and Verizon are subject to review by the FCC, the SEC, and the FTC. I want to call attention to a comment Mr. Moynihan has made repeatedly about the 14,000 cell towers in Manhattan. They do not exist.
Antennas.
No, you said towers.
No, I didn't say towers, antennas.
Okay, we'll call them antennas. There are not 14,000 cell antennas in Manhattan. The study you're referring to discusses 14,000 antennas for the city of New York. There are only 354 cell towers, according to the FCC, in Manhattan. When you look at the population of 1.6 million people in Manhattan and 20,000 people in New Canaan, the ratio turns out to be one cell tower in Manhattan for every 4,600 people and one cell tower in New Canaan for every 4,100 people. We are already more cell tower dense per capita than Manhattan. My closing remarks relate to two comments made by our selectmen. Mr. Williams said last week, the implications are not as bad as advertised when referring to healthcare, health effects. And Mr. Moynihan said the tower is not the problem. I've provided you with a statement in the annual report from Verizon, which states, our wireless business also faces personal injury and wrongful death lawsuits related to alleged health effects, as wireless phones and radio frequency transmitters, like the ones you're considering putting up, may incur significant expenses in defending these actions, and we may be required to pay significant rewards. They're telling their stockholders that there's going to be an issue. Crown Castle, the largest producer of cell towers, 42,000 in the country, goes further and says, we don't have insurance because Lloyd's of London and all the insurance industry won't insure for electromagnetic radiation. So if you build a cell tower on town property, I think the question has to be asked, are we exposing ourselves to the same possible litigation that these companies are now preparing themselves? So the 14,000 cell towers, Mr. Moynihan, you've said
No,
repeatedly,
antennas.
repeatedly said cell towers, number one.
That would be,
And number two,
that would be
there are
absurd. That would be absurd.
That would be absurd.
Yeah.
And there are, which is what motivated me to look.
Yeah.
And the 14,000 antennas don't exist because that study is for the city of New York. Manhattan would be a fraction of that. Finally, I would say that when you raise the question of the tower is not the problem, it's the cell phone, but basically you call the comparison to the two. A person on a cell phone talks a few minutes, perhaps an hour a day, whatever anyone's individual use is. A student at West School from kindergarten to fifth grade would spend 6 years, roughly 150 days, 160 days a year, about 6 hours a day, or a total of 5,000 to 6,000 hours of exposure to electromagnetic radiation. The arithmetic will add up when you do it. So you can't make the comparison that the tower and the phone are equally toxic as you have. So I summarize with my opening statement that there is no basis in fact for a cell tower at West School. In fact, there's contradictory evidence provided by Verizon, provided by AT&T, provided by independent reviewers, and you can go to the websites and see the maps for yourself. I gave you just some drawings.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ilya Sislamov. With my family, we moved to town about a year or so ago. We were drawn to it by the green, pristine setting in which our 5 kids can grow up. And I'm still a little baffled when I hear the comparison Manhattan to New Canaan. They're very different. I don't think we should be comparing tower density or anything between the two because, again, this is just Manhattan and New Canaan, again, are, worlds apart, and that's why we came here. One thing that that again, I'm having difficulty understanding is again, the concept of need for cell coverage on the west side around West School. We live near West School. We currently have 3 kids that attend. Reception there is fine. Have been no gaps. Don't really understand the argument that more is needed. Maybe more is needed in certain other parts of town, and there's certainly some pretty dead zones. But again, none of them are anywhere near the west side. I spend my entire day there. Our kids play there. I've never had issues from a cell phone perspective. On the flip side, even if
Can I ask you what carrier you have? Can I ask you what carrier you have?
I currently have Verizon. In addition, even if that general area could basically benefit from some improved reception, and again, I don't think that's the case, but even if that was the case, I think we can find an area that's a lot less sensitive than an elementary school. Again, I recently looked at the arguments in favor of the tower in that location, looked at the Homeland Towers website. I really don't buy this whole urgency concept. Obviously, there's urgency from their perspective. They want to put out as many towers as possible. That's their business. They'll probably put 3 towers at the elementary school if we allow them to, because again, that's their business model. But again, all of us are here, and I kind of want to echo a lot of the points that I heard from some of my neighbors so far to make sure that we protect our kids, our families, and really our way of life here. And one other point that again, I think it's important to mention is on the website, one of the arguments was, hey, this is totally safe. Here's a link to the American Cancer Society website. And what you read there when you go to this website is that, currently there's no evidence. Currently, more is needed. More research is needed because, again, long-term impacts cannot be measured unless you spend years and maybe even decades. And as the gentleman before me mentioned, given the amount of overall exposure that all of our kids would have in terms of hours spent at the school, as well as anybody who lives near the school, which again, myself and many of our neighbors do, I think it's a risk that's just purely unnecessary, given the fact that we don't even need any additional reception. So with that, I want to thank you for your attention, and hopefully over the next 30 days or 90 days, a period of discussing this, all the voices are considered and heard, and to the extent that there is concern from the people that actually live in those areas, and the people that are supposed to be using those supposed to be using that signal, all of that is taken into account. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mai Din. I live on Bennington Place. My family moved to New Canaan last July, and I have a daughter at West. She's here today, and a younger daughter who will be going to West. And my main concern is the health risks that this cell phone tower will pose to my kids, all the students at West, the staff. And I just don't understand why an elementary school needs to be a location for this giant tower. And also I have questions about the maintenance of it, and who's going to have access to the school at what time. And I just feel very strongly that it's an unnecessary risk to take for our kids and our staff, and our school system was just rated #1. And I think that we need to be accountable to our staff, our teachers who show up, and to our students. So that's all I have to say about it. Thank you.
So my name is Sherry Kronk. I live on Winfield, and so we would directly be affected. We moved here in 2011 specifically for New Canaan, specifically for the schools, specifically for the nature. We live at the end of the road, not all the way at the cul-de-sac, but very much at the end of the road, where our entire backyard, excuse me, our entire backyard is trees. We have wetlands behind us. We purposely bought that property for the space and for the privacy. Our backyard, like I said, has wetlands. Behind that is west. So we neighbor right to west. We have concerns about the wetlands. We have concerns about the effect that it might have on the water. We have long-term concerns, and I've been working, with Barbara to give her some of these questions, which are incorporated into this questionnaire. I'm not here to talk about those questions. I think a lot of other people have already discussed those. I want to talk about the personal side of it, right? Because we came here for New Canaan. We came here to be part of a community, and we want to make sure that we're getting that addressed. We know that there haven't been enough studies on long-term effects. We know that more research is needed. I'm very happy to hear that decisions aren't being made today, because we know that there are so many questions that are still outstanding. We know there are no answers. There's other alternatives. There's other opportunities that we could be addressing, and we're imploring you to check those out. Excuse me. We know that it's high risk. We've seen that from other schools, from other towns. And so we're asking for other options and other locations to be considered. We could sit here and talk about science. I think everybody has some questions that they've asked. Everybody's done their own research. There's always more research to do. Google is never ending. What we want to do is talk about what the effect is going to be to our families, to our kids, to the West School kids, to the students and the teachers who, obviously have opinions but can't share them based on their roles, based on their livelihood. So what we're really doing, what I'm doing right now is really pleading to the personal side. I'm appealing to you to consider what your neighbors and what the children and what the families of those children are going to have to go through based on a decision that would get rushed through. Please find another place. Good morning.
My name's Melinda Andrade. I also live on Winfield Lane. We moved to New Canaan 14 years ago. It's been an amazing experience to live in a town where neighbors, friends, and concerned citizens will come to a forum like this during the summer, early in the morning. I question the fact that this is being held in the middle of summer about a subject that will affect everyone in the fall. Not just neighbors, but so many people in New Canaan have children that are going to go to West School. My question is, I don't really have a question, to be honest. My concern is that New Canaan is a large town, and don't we have enough property somewhere not near a school, housing, maybe on a highway somewhere, where if we do need emergency cell towers or some type of booster system, can't we try to figure out somewhere else to do it? If it is I do understand, I don't want people not being able to call for emergency services or help. But maybe there's a way that we can compromise and find, if this is the technology that has to be, if there are no alternative solutions, is there a way that we can, for public safety concerns, find a different location? That would be my statement. So thank you very much. And thank you for sitting and listening to us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good morning. My name is Megan Morales. I've been a resident of New Canaan with my family for the past 7 years. I'm here just as a concerned citizen. My youngest just graduated from West School. I worked with Barbara and a bunch of other residents on this list of questions for you, and I appreciate the opportunity that we've been given today to not rush to a vote. It's summer, like Melissa just said. It's impossible to me to make a decision on this within a 2-week time frame. So I appreciate the opportunity. My biggest concern with this whole thing really is the lack of data. If you're entering into a business decision on something, there's a due diligence report. Where's the data? The residents deserve the data. The town deserves the data. You should want to see the data that this is the right technology, that there isn't something better out there, that the Ritchie Tower on Soundview is doing what it was intended to do. What was the service like before? What is it now? Has it improved? You should want to see that data. I want to see that data. Make an informed decision that is the right decision for this town. There are a ton of really smart people here. We have questions, and I think as tax-paying residents, we deserve answers. So a lot of our questions are on this document. I would encourage you to please take the time and read them. Give us the data so we can be informed residents. The diagram that was presented by Homeland Towers the last meeting in June showed two possible sites. Well, why one over the other? Where's the data to show what that is going to look like? What sort of digging is required? Like, all of that information should be presented up front prior to any sort of vote or decision that is made. So it's an informed decision. It's mind-boggling to me that a vote was going to be considered without that information. You know, the wetlands, the wildlife, the runoff, how that impacts the wells of the residents that live behind it. This is important information. Is this the best technology? I know the utility pole antennas are more expensive, but maybe costs will go down. Where's the analysis on that? Where's the cost benefit analysis? Any business decision has data behind it to back up the decision, and maybe the opposing information too. That's all I'm asking. Where's the data? Make an informed decision that makes the most sense for the residents of this town. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Hi, hello, can you hear me?
I can. Tucker, who's on?
Oh, hi.
If there's anybody
my name
on Zoom that would like to speak, you'll have to use your remote, raise your hand, and we will call on you once everybody in the room has spoken. Thank you.
Could you mute everybody else? Oh.
Okay, good morning. Mark Bushman, 359 Dance Highway. As you all know, we are the house that is clearly most affected by the Ponus Ridge Tower. We have now spent a number of years fighting that tower, and as we have at 2 o'clock today, yet another evidentiary hearing to talk about the deficiency of that tower. I will say for everybody in this room, I'm glad people have woken up about it. We frankly were asleep while the Ritchie Tower debate was going on. It was the first set of decisions and process that was put in place with a lack of transparency that has ultimately now led to a tower being proposed on Ponus Ridge. And frankly, if it wasn't for our FOIA requests and us getting information out there, nobody in this room would have known about the West School Tower until you probably would have filed the application with Homeland Towers for the Siting Council. Sir, you are a master at four-card Monty. You're a master at four-card Monty, the game about lack of transparency. This is what you do. It's never you. It's either the Siting Council, which has tremendous powers in the state. It is Homeland, who supposedly is doing all the work on behalf of the town, doing all this analysis, and yet puts forward an application, certainly for our property, that is 140 feet from our home. Think about that, 140 feet on a multi-million-dollar property with no barriers to it. You're removing over 100 trees, and they're within 140 feet of our 4 children. Is there even any thought that was given to that impact? No, because it was one home, and of course, the Raverettes are a little further away. Nishiokas, who are slightly closer as well, they're not here today, but you're trying to pick off neighbors one off against each other. But again, it's not you, it's Homeland. But we all know from our investigation that one, the applications being put forward by Homeland are woefully inadequate in regards to environmental, in regards to actual technology that was considered. There hasn't been anything other considered than monopines because that is what they specialize in. There's a whole lot of questions about who's benefiting, which you've heard from other neighbors here, about who's actually getting the money. We know through our FOIA requests that you're going to pay $3,500 for an emergency responder service to this lameness LLC, 1837 LLC.
Not true, Mark.
Plus, we have the email, sir.
Yeah, not
We have the emails, $4,000 that we
that's
paid.
before AT&T stepped in. AT&T took that out.
We have wonderful emails from
Kevin,
you.
let him
So
speak.
yeah, I'm gonna speak because we have wonderful emails from you, Kevin. And what it proves is that behind the scenes, you are the person who's pulling all the strings. You're the ones who, we have an emergency tower at 982 Oak Ridge. They have pulled out of the contract when they sold the property, the condition to close of removing the antenna. Has the town even explored keeping the antenna there? No, I doubt it did, because it was yet another great reason to try to push an emergency tower onto Ponus Ridge. We have neighbors who've offered to host an emergency responder tower. Don't give that face. Don Cormel, he's reached out to you, he's emailed you, he's emailed the siting council. We have people who are willing to step in to help on the emergency side. But frankly, you have not considered that. Because again,
John.
it's always
Let
someone. Let me finish, please. It's my time. It's not your time. We have given you multiple alternatives. And again, no due respect to the first responders, we also know that you offered to write their letters for them on behalf of the siting council, because we have that email as well. So don't.
Not true. Not true.
Okay, you have the email. A lot.
Yeah.
People can go onto our Facebook page and see the email about that as well. So we lack transparency in this town. You're behind all of it. You are.
I ran on it, Mark. I ran on it when I ran for first selectman. I'm not.
In Westport,
Yeah.
I'm going to finish.
Yeah.
In Westport, the mayor there decided to go to microcell. In Stamford, when it was put up, yes, you can again make that face. It's in articles. It doesn't take much research to figure that out. You can go over to North Stamford. Why was that tower defeated? Because the mayor there stepped in on behalf of the people. So I would ask you to stop playing this four-card Monty, whether it's the state, it's Homeland's work, it is all these things that are out of your control. It is entirely in your control. You're seeing a lot of angry residents who clearly are not going to vote for you again, if they voted for you to begin with. And what you have now is a groundswell of opposition about not just the fact that this has been done in the middle of the night process, with people doing balloon sightings. The tower, the balloon floating was done in the first 2 weeks of August when everybody was gone. It was done on purpose. Ray Vergati telling us, don't tell your neighbors about the balloon sighting. Fantastic, great. 1 day notices for Zooms in February about a sighting, but a Zoom meeting about our tower where nobody frankly got the notice or was aware of it. This has been done with the least amount of transparency, all in an effort to try to jam this onto your citizens. So you mentioned it. So it was your election promise. I know that. I don't think people realize that your election promise was to take away people's property rights and to jam this onto their property. So I like to reconsider your promise. I think you got to slightly adjust it, is to get cell phone service into this town, but to do it in a reasonable way that doesn't trample on people's health and their property rights. And for everybody who's new to the process in Connecticut, one of the very few states, we can't even raise the idea of health benefits or lack thereof in our arguments with the siting council. We're legally bound not to do it. So my 4 kids, one who's right here, we can't even talk about what is the impact for them by having a 110-foot monopine 140 feet from our property. We can't do it legally. You can read 1,000 studies. They're all horrible. And as the gentleman said, the cancer one says, more work is to be done here. We have the fire department whose own union won't let them actually have towers on top of their buildings, yet it's somehow okay for us to have it. It's wrong. It's your job to fix it. It's not your job to jam it on us. And I hope that you would actually do your job. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jamie Bushman. I live at 359 Dan's Highway. Mark is my husband. We moved to New Canaan because we love this town. It reminded me of where I grew up in the Midwest. It reminded Mark of where he grew up in the Midwest. We loved our area. It's natural beauty. We have a large property. It's private. It's wooded. We overlook the Laurel Reservoir, which is beautiful. I'm raising our 4 children in our home. And prior to all of this, my full-time job was raising my children. Now my full-time job is opposing a cell tower. I spend every day working to inform and try to unite those in opposition. There are so many of us. It's just getting, this upswell is just rising. I'm just devastated. I'm devastated. I'm exhausted. I'm scared. I feel helpless. I don't understand why you're doing this to us. It's a nightmare. Wake up in the middle of the night worrying for my children. This is our home. I have put so much energy and time and love into creating this home for our family. And you, in the cover dark of night, decided to put up 110-foot monopine with radio frequency emitting 140 feet from my beautiful home. It is a complete nightmare. And there's no data. You've done no research into alternatives. Where's the information? We're residents, we're taxpayers. Why can't you give us alternatives? Why don't we do what Westport's doing and go to the DAS technology, small cell? We have children at West School. Now the nightmare is just doubling. Not only will a cell tower be right next to my home, looming over my beautiful home that I adore, it will also be in the backyard of the playground of my children's school. I have 2 young children at West School. I have 2 at Saks. It's a nightmare, and it just is continuing on. And there's no transparency. And I'm just pleading with you as a mother, as a resident, please stop this. Please slow down. It might be too late for us. You gave us notice of going to the CT Siting Council for the location 100 something feet from our home. Only the abutting residents got a text at noon the day of the Zoom. No one had time to even inform everyone else in the neighborhood. We've been fighting this for 5 years. The Steffens, our neighbors, started the fight. They moved to Texas. The Smiths, who also had 4 children right behind us, who I grew up in the same small town in Illinois with Maggie, they moved. They sold their house because of this. They moved. They're gone. They moved across town because they didn't want to be right next to the cell tower. It's a nightmare. And please, I'm just imploring you, slow down. Do whatever you can to research other options. They are out there. We just need more information and more transparency. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Natalie Fiedler. I live on West Road. I wasn't planning to speak this morning, but here we are. I'm probably the newest resident in the room. My family moved from the city 10 days ago. So thank you. We love it here. We had the one good thing that came out of COVID is that we rented here for a while at the beginning of this mess. And my oldest daughter at the time was in 1st grade at West. My son was still in preschool, but has some learning differences and was at West receiving therapy. So we did have a brief stay at the school and loved it so much that after going back to Manhattan for a year, we decided to buy a home and move here for good. The reason we left Manhattan was to move to a town and give our children what you imagine having growing up, the backyard and the fresh air and the schools with the playgrounds so they don't have to play on the street at recess. That's all wonderful. And we get here and then the first week we're here, I learned they're putting a cell phone tower in the kids' elementary school. And that was pretty disappointing because I could have just stayed in New York. So a lot of people here know a lot more about this than I do. So I don't have a ton of research or intelligent comments on how the tower is going to affect us. But I do know that I don't have enough information to say that it won't. So if you're saying there's no proof that it's going to cause harm to my children, that's great. But is there proof that it won't? Because there hasn't been enough long-term research. And if my kids are going to be there every day, and I also have a 2-year-old, so I'm going to be at West for a really long time. And I'm not comfortable knowing that I'm sending my kids to school every day with a giant tower and they're, basically on school property. I also, just from a safety point, like, who's going to be rummaging around the West School property? Like, are they background checked? Or I don't know if you've addressed this. You probably have. Like I said, I've been here about 5 seconds. There are too many questions though. And we're so happy to be in New Canaan and we love this town. And we feel really lucky that we've landed here. But this is disappointing. And I have very little information on it and I'm already upset about it. So I can only imagine people who have been in the trenches a lot longer than I have on this. But if you can get me with 3 kids out the door with wet hair at 8:30 in the morning on a summer day, just imagine all the moms who are going to come out when they're back from summer vacation. So I really, really encourage you to reconsider this and to think of our kids, because the past several years, it's always the kids who get the short end of the stick here. It's like, and I'm just talking not specifically in New Canaan, but they've suffered enough through this pandemic and everything else. And now we're coming out of it. And now it's just like, they can't speak up for themselves. They're little kids. These aren't even high schoolers. These are kids who are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. It's a shame. So I hope that we can find another place or another alternative. That's it.
Don't leave, stay.
Anybody else?
Okay, is there anybody on Zoom that would like to speak up? Oh, yes. Hang on, we've got one more person. Yes, I need your name, please. Colin Keenan, and then if there's anybody online that would like to speak up, please raise your virtual hand and we will call on you. Thank you.
A lot of impassioned people here, but what I did want to talk about is I'm glad a study was done. I was wondering if that had been done, but in 2014, I think that's a lifetime in cell phone world, carrier world. I would also say, I have some experience in this. I know enough to be dangerous, by no means an expert, but what we are doing in this town is fighting a battle that's 10, 15 years old, right? Macro towers, big, ugly, more importantly, high powered radios. And the biggest problem though, and the most important thing is radio wave propagation. This town has challenging topography, ridges and draws, highs and lows.
And leaves.
Hmm?
And leaves.
Yeah, well, a lot of rock and a lot of trees.
A lot of trees.
So these big towers you're going to put up, the radio waves do not propagate that well, and the coverage will not be that good. There are alternatives. Starlink is one. It's good, getting better, but there's one thing, the way all the carriers have been creating densification in the past really 5-10 years is through small cell deployment, microcell, femtocell, sometimes confused with DAS. They're slightly different, sometimes not. But basically you have, importantly, they go on existing infrastructure. They're low powered radios and the town can retain some control over those. So I'd urge you to redo the study. I know that costs money. Nobody wants to do that. But with respect to safety, because of the radio wave propagation, it's not that good. It's not going to work that well for these guys. It's not going to provide the coverage we need. So I would appreciate redoing that study. And I sent Nick and Kathleen an email. Go to Crown Castle, go to SBA. There's websites. Part of their website's dedicated entirely to small cell deployments within municipalities, et cetera. And
Yeah, Crown Castle came in and studied the town several years ago. Said it didn't work. So we can talk about that.
several years ago. How long ago?
Yeah, I'm gonna go through the whole
Okay.
history.
All right.
Yeah.
But I find that, Westport did it. There's a reason why they're doing it across the country. A lot of different areas are doing this, and it is the only solution that actually works. So
They don't have the trees we have.
Hmm?
They don't have the trees we have.
well,
No, this is part of the conversation.
Well, small cell doesn't go that far, right?
They don't go, they're not strong
Large
enough to go,
macro towers needs to.
they're not
propagate.
strong enough to go through leaves, through leafy trees. That's why. So,
Well, let's get the study. Thank you.
Marissa, could you please state your last name?
This is Marissa Percy. I live on Soundview Lane. Sorry, I'm not able to start my video here. Obviously on Soundview Lane, you already know that there's a cell phone tower that is on a private residential property. So the town had no control over any of the design or placement of that, or even the screening that went in. It was all by the private property owner. So this one you're choosing to put on town property. So I think that, you know, if this moves forward, we really need to look into and follow the P&Z's strong recommendations for placement and screening. So right now you have it very close to neighbors. There's no setback at all. We need to look at setbacks. We need to take into consideration when you move and respect these setbacks, how close you are to the school. Because then if you're within 250 feet, the siting council doesn't recommend having it close to daycares or preschools, which I'm sure that's why you have it outside 250 feet now. And then obviously in the same regulation, you can put it in within 250 feet if it's approved by the chief elected officer, which is you. I don't think anyone that voted for you would agree with that. So maybe take that into consideration. Also with respect to screening, none of that was respected when the Ritchie cell tower went in. So since you're putting this on town-owned land, you really need to start respecting town recommendations for that. That's all.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands raised online. I don't see anybody left here that would like to speak. So I guess that concludes the public comment.
okay. Thank you all for your comments. We have an agenda to run through here, and I propose that we move the cell tower discussion to the end of the agenda, so because it'll be an extended discussion.
Yeah, I would like to make a move to table the cell tower discussion. I have not read the lease agreement.
We're not talking about the lease today. We're talking about the background and the need.
This is discussion regarding draft lease. That's what your agenda item says. It says the lease agreement.
Kathleen, do you want to wait to your background?
And I would propose that this is premature when we're talking about a lease regarding something we haven't agreed to. As a lawyer, an M&A lawyer, you don't draft a purchase and sale or a stock purchase agreement until you've had a meeting of minds, a letter of intent.
Well, that's
term sheet.
Well, you recall, we have an agreement with Hellman's Towers. We have a master lease with them that you approved in August of 2016.
I understand that, Kevin. But we're talking about whether we put a cell phone tower up at West School or not. We don't need to talk about the lease until we come to that decision. And I would say we should wait till at least after Labor Day so we can have a fulsome discussion when people are not in Nantucket or Maine or Vermont or whatever. This is ridiculous. This came up 2 weeks ago. I'm disappointed to see this on the agenda. I found out about this on Friday, as did Selectman Corbett. The week before 4th of July, this comes out, and then the week after 4th of July, our meetings, we're discussing this. I just think this is really premature.
Kathleen, can you speak?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Listen, I also agree that this needs more discussion, public discourse. I appreciate everybody who took the time to come in this morning to speak with us. I think the dialogue, Kevin, you'd mentioned maybe 90 days. I don't know if you're talking about 90 days starting from now, but I think I have a list. I've read the lease agreement and I do have a number of questions, but I think as Selectman Williams just said, I think it makes more sense to discuss the lease agreement after we go over a number of these questions. I haven't seen the questions that were submitted by the public, but I'd like to see, I've seen a number of them obviously on email. And if we can maybe put together a process, Kevin, that maybe identifies what are the technology options, what are the location options, review the data points on the coverage of existing cells, et cetera, all the items that have been addressed and more on public safety, et cetera. If we can put out sort of a timeline, I think that would be helpful for everyone. And then the lease agreement, in my view, can wait until say September. I'm prepared to talk about it if you'd like today, but I think that probably makes sense to put a timeline together about all the items that should be discussed in a public discourse point of view. And so if you'd be kind enough to do that, I think that that would make sense. There's a lot of work that can be done between now and September, and doing the due diligence on this, I think is a great first start. So that would be my recommendation.
Kevin, one of the questions I have, it's interesting, I'm sitting here with documentation from the New Canaan Utilities Commission dated, 2017. What is the status of our Utilities Commission currently? The Utilities Commission is something that first Selectman Malazi and I really pushed back in 2011, 2012 to spearhead cell phone.
And Tom Teslick was the.
Yeah, that's exactly. So I know you've played a leading role, or maybe a singular role in pushing this forward, and I respect that. But can you just, walk me through any assistance you're getting besides Homeland?
We either have a discussion today about this matter or table it until Kathleen is back.
I motioned to table it, so.
I'm going to talk to the town council next Wednesday night.
Okay.
Okay. Because everybody has to understand the history of the last 10 years
Sure.
of where we've been, right? To understand where we are today.
Okay.
That's why I asked you to review everything on the website, because all the history is there. You're obviously not prepared to talk today. We'll table for.
I'm not prepared to talk about the lease agreement because that's what I've not read, because I don't want to put the cart before the horse.
All right. So
I have a motion on the table to.
I second that motion.
I'll second.
We'll take it up in 2 weeks after our discussion with the town council. So
To be clear, my motion is to revisit this after Labor Day when everybody's back in town. 2 weeks from now. By the way, I think I'm on vacation 2 weeks from now, but it's beside the point. Are you okay with that?
we have to have this discussion in the next 90, 100 days.
Why? Because AT&T wants us to have it?
No, because AT&T is not even the company. Right.
Or
The point is everybody has to get up to speed on where we've been in the past 10 years, right? There's a whole history here.
What's the current coverage? Let's get up to speed.
That's right. Yeah.
Let's do an updated study.
Okay.
How about that first starting?
Look at, you had your opportunity to comment. If you want to come up and comment, but comment is over.
I think so.
Okay, thank you. Kathleen, I vote to table today.
Right.
Okay.
Let's table it.
So that's after Labor Day?
Not until after Labor Day.
Huh?
Not until after Labor Day.
Okay.
We have.
But
I can't talk to Kathleen except in a public meeting. We have to have this discussion.
Okay, and
Selectmen.
okay, it's my motion. Okay, Robert's Rules of Order. My motion is that we table this until after Labor Day. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Lots of work to be done though, between now and Labor Day. So I wouldn't
All those in
postpone.
favor?
This certainly can be postponed until September. Excuse me?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's
I vote no.
okay. 2-1.
Okay. That's the end of the cell tower discussion today. So we'll get on with our agenda. If you wish to stay, please do.
Public utility comment on the ballot.
It's not populated currently. And we had a technology advisory committee instead. So,
And what's the status of that?
okay. Deputy Chief Federico and Captain Walsh, good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
Great.
First item on the agenda is the software maintenance agreement for the Next Gen Solutions. Please explain that to us.
This is our records management software. It's basically everything we do from dispatching to report writing, property management, records keeping, court documents, federal reporting software. We've had this for a number of years, and it's just an annual maintenance agreement. It's going up $735 this year. It hasn't gone up in over 6 years, so this is a first increase we've seen, but it's still a modest increase, and it's something that we rely heavily on.
Questions?
What are the health implications of this?
Zero. No radiation.
I have no questions.
Kathleen?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, I move we approve the request from the police department to continue an agreement with Next Gen Solutions for $21,735 for the annual software maintenance fees.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay. Morning, Tiger.
Morning. So the first item I have is we went out for bid for phase 3 of the Bristow Centennial Master Plan. We received only one bid from Peter Lonnie Associates for $56,179.04. We added a contingency of $8,500 for a total cost of $64,694,679.04 for the work itself. It includes additional trail installation and reconstruction, the installation of the hilltop destination and overlook, some various fencing requirements, and some related landscaping improvements. Peter Lonnie Incorporated has done excellent work on phase 1, 2, and 2A, and we'd like to see them go forward with phase 3. They're about to finish phase 2 with some additional boardwalk installation, a little bit of punch list work, and then they'll get started on phase 3, and that'll include the footings for the pavilion, which should be here in February.
Tiger, this is in the budget?
This is in the budget. This is in the 23 budget.
Yep.
Nick.
Yep.
Sorry.
Questions for Tiger?
Yes, just Tiger, any reasons why you think only one bidder came in? Obviously, a group that you admire and they've been working with us, but any other reasons why somebody else wouldn't bid?
I think there's a couple. One is everyone is extremely busy. We're having a difficult time getting people to bid on projects. They seem to be when we reach out individually, being told I'm full through next year, kind of thing. Their calendars are full. That's one. And two, they're just not able to match his pricing. He's a sole proprietor, so sole proprietors, since he's working on the job, he's paying himself as he's working. So he's not paying additional staff. And I think that his pricing is the pricing for his work is hard to beat. So therefore they're deciding just not to spend the money to go through the bid process.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I move we approve the request from Public Works to enter into a contract with Peter Lonnie Inc. for a total of $64,679 for phase 3 improvements at Bristow Centennial Master Plan, Bristow Bird Sanctuary.
Second here.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The next, we went out to bid for our Sidewalk 22 project. It states Oak Ridge. It's actually starts on Main Street at Heritage Hill, runs up the hill when Main Street changes into Oak Ridge at that point, and then continues all the way forward to Parade Hill with reconstruction of an existing sidewalk and then approximately 2 homes with the construction of a new sidewalk to get to Parade Hill. This still requires state permit. We've been back and forth with the state during the permit process for review. We've
Why is that?
answered-
Because it's 106,
It's 124.
124.
Yeah. So it's within their right of way. So they need an encroachment permit. So they're, even though they have no maintenance requirements and no money involved in the project, we still need to go forward and get an encroachment permit. So Maria's been working diligently for the past 2 years on it, and we're very close to getting we answered their last questions, and we're hoping that now we'll have the permit. So we went out to bid. We received 2 bids on this. Peter Lonnie Incorporated was the low at 320, 273.84. We also received a bid from Star Construction for 569, 690. We'd like to go forward with the contract with Peter Lonnie for 320, 273.84. We added a contingency of 15% of 48,000 for a total of 368, 273.84. And the funds are available in the 23 budget, or 22 and 23 budgets combined.
Questions?
None here.
Just a quick question. What is the actual, is it asphalt that's going to be put down on the sidewalk? I'm just trying to recall walking on. Go ahead.
It's currently asphalt. It will be concrete throughout. So it'll be, so from Heritage Hill, it'll be concrete all the way to Parade Hill through each driveway apron. We try to carry the sidewalks through the driveways to give the pedestrian the right of way or the perceived right of way at each juncture. So it'll be a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk.
That's going to be a huge improvement over what's there now.
Yes. Yeah, we're looking forward to that. Right now, he's working on Farm Road. He just started Farm Road, and that'll be another.
So farm started?
Farm started yesterday. Yeah, he'll pour his first tomorrow. First sets tomorrow. I was there this morning, and he'll work through that, and that'll be another portion of the ribbon around, the walkway around from Main Street to Farm down south. So it'll be
Can you give us an update on paving while we're at it? Just, I'm looking at the mom's page and they're complaining about paving after they're complaining about bad roads, whatever. You can't please all the people all the time.
Yeah.
But where are we with 123? Where are we with in town, our roads, town roads?
So 123, they have the first course down throughout. They did shorten it due to budget constraints. They did.
Is that going to be next year?
Next year, yeah. So I confirmed that everything that they had cut from this year, I spoke to the DOT last week, everything that they had cut out of the budget this year, the piece on 106, 124, and then the second stretch on 123 are all slated for next year. The prices are quite high throughout. Oil, as you know, is a little bit up, so everything is costing a little bit more. So I think that they just couldn't come forward with what they needed to do, and they needed to make cuts. And what they cut was probably the better portions of the road to cut. Let's put it that way. So they're paving now. Like I said, the first course is down. Second course has started. They should be done within.
And the
next
bump
week.
on 123 will be eliminated.
Yeah.
Bumps, multiple bumps.
Yeah, we have the one where it goes across the new drainage culvert, right? So
Right.
on 123. So obviously they didn't want to
Two
pave over the
bumps,
top of that.
right.
Yeah, so those will be done. Actually, one is done now because they're on the top course on it, but the remaining ones, so you won't feel them as you go.
And then what about at Michigan? How are they going to do that?
Michigan, they have to tie that last little piece in. They didn't kind of butt up against it. They'll butt up against it on the next course. And you'll feel it. When I went over it this morning, I could see they just didn't butt up on the last course.
Right.
So they'll butt up against that probably within the next couple of days.
Right.
So you won't feel that either.
Right.
So it should be a nice smooth sail from the state line straight down into town at that point in time. As far as our town roads go, we finished Main Street, the upper stretch of Main Street from Lakeview to Maple. We stopped at Maple because the library's under construction in that last block. They're already tied in some of their utilities, but in case they needed to get back out on the road, there was no sense in us finishing that last block. And then we did Park Street from Bank all the way to Elm, and we stopped at Elm for the exact same reason. I've got Eversource Gas and Aquarian Water both working in that intersection at present. We've got to come forward with some work as well. We have hopefully the next bid will be a sidewalk bid to do that portions. I didn't want to do that intersection and the last remaining pieces up the hill.
Is Church on the list,
Church is on the list. Church was done in 2019 as far as Eversource gas installation. So going by that's how we were looking at trying to do everything from 2018 and 2022 and everything in 2019 and 2023. Church is in the 2023 status. I've asked I've asked Eversource numerous times to go back out and police that area and take care of any issues. Just sent them a note at the end of last week, as far as I think there were 4 locations that our highway department noticed there that to ask them to take care of on Church Street specifically, to then try to smooth out that area. If right now we're seeing an upsurge in call before you digs for gas installation. So the problem being is that
an uptick in what?
In call before you dig for gas installation. So, they have to do a call before you dig to locate all the underground utilities before they're allowed to come in and get a permit from us to put in a gas line, the service to a house. We're seeing an uptick in those service installations now to the point where Park Street, they did one the day before we paved. That's the nightmare, is that the day before they paved, I had to allow them to come in and do a new homeowner who had only been in the house for 10 days to come in and do a gas installation and get them off the street, and use what's called a flowable fill inside the trench to make sure it didn't settle. So that's the nightmare, is that as we try to come forward to repave, people are still trying to come forward and
we can't prevent them from doing that.
We could ask for, in our MOU, we have the right to slate a moratorium, but at the same time, all that does is hurt the resident for not allowing them to hook up for up to 2 years post paving. That's in the MOU, but if we want to execute that, that's fine. But then it tells the resident, sorry, but you can't hook up for 2 years, which I don't necessarily want to be in that situation where I have to tell a resident no. So
if the resident has had due notice and, prior.
In this one, the guy had been here for, had only moved into, just moved into town and jumped on it, which I have to agree. The others, what we're asking for now is to either fill the trench with this flowable fill mixture where we won't get any settlement, and then mill it out and then allow our localized repair contractor to do the final repair of the pavement, because then we'll know.
I think if the resident has had due notice, I'm putting aside that, somebody who's just moved in, but if you've been in town, you had due notice and you suddenly decide to, at the last minute, to execute a trench, maybe they should pay for it.
Well, that's what we're looking at. Eventually, they're going to have to anyways, but we're looking at instituting these additional measures to then mitigate any problems. So to allow them to hook up, but you have to do these additional measures so that we won't have an issue and it'll be smooth when you're looking on the top and safe.
Right.
So those are the things that we're discussing right now with Eversource, as far as what other measures we could do to allow the resident to hook up, but then still protect the town's investment on the backside now that we've made it, now that we've repaved the road. And then on the other side, we've finished Brinkerhoff, Mortimer, and Lockwood finally. So that neighborhood is complete with reconstructed sidewalks. We're working on, Mead Street is done, new sidewalks on Mead Street, new installation, as I say, reconstruction. And then we'll work through the next phase of our paving shortly. That's VD Street, Soundview Lane, Cross Street, and Ferris Hill Road. Excuse me, will be done shortly, and a portion of Cherry. And then we are right now working on our Cape Seal. So those roads are being redone. That's about 19 roads there, and microthin overlay will come in next week, top over the top of the Cape Seal, and then do an additional 3 roads there. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks, every road.
And the reason why there's a bunch of paving going on now is because this is the time to do it.
We try
so many people are away, and
we try to do all the Cape Seal.
School buses.
Exactly. We tried to do the Cape Seal and the microthin overlay specifically during this time, right after July, because people are gone, and for the micro, when we put the micro on, there's a 15 to 20 minute delay where they cannot get on the material at all. If we were putting a hot mix asphalt down, they could get on the material and we could roll and probably save it, not necessarily see the tire tracks. You can't have them be on it when it's wet, because all they're going to do is track it onto their car, track it down the road, track it into their house. That becomes a problem. So that's the reason why we do these specific techniques right after July 4th. hoping that the town is a little less active.
Yeah, so in order to get better roads, which is what we all want, you have to put up with some delays, some disruptions.
We like to say you got to break a few
Patience.
eggs to make
Patience, patience.
So that kind of tells you exactly where we are. We should be done, like I said, within the next couple of weeks. Everything should be complete except for the final set of paving. And contractor had to go back to, he's servicing two towns, Greenwich and us, had to go back to Greenwich for a couple of weeks, and he's going to come back to us.
I appreciate the update. So back to the agenda.
Sure.
My
It's the,
apologies.
I just need a motion on the sidewalks for
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? I have a question. I didn't.
Oh, sorry.
I wasn't finished with questions.
Oh, go ahead.
Are we putting curbs in along the sidewalk?
for Oak Ridge, that would be the state. So no, at present, we're just replacing the sidewalk. We have a small stretch of granite curbing that's going in where the sidewalk meets the road, right, pretty much right in front of the Historical Society. There's about a 20-foot stretch. Other than that, there'll be no curbs unless the state warrants that they want them.
Actually, Tiger, is 123 going to be curbed? Because
123, it appears that they took the curbing out. Yeah, so it looks like it'll be recurbed after.
recurb it.
Yeah, it appears that they took out a long stretch of curbing specifically up near the country club and beyond. So I believe that they'll come back in again and take care of that as well. The embankment's quite high. I would imagine they will be.
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next item, flagging services.
Yes. So the next is flagging services with precise traffic control. The way we work is a contractor we put an allowance inside our contracts for flagging services. Contractor hires a flagger when police services are not available. And then we've been utilizing precise traffic since they've gone through a couple of iterations as far as company name, but the people behind the scenes are the exact same. They provide an excellent service for us, excellent flaggers. If we ever have an issue with any flagger whatsoever, any issue, they make amends immediately. So we're looking at coming forward with a contract with Precise Traffic Control for $50,000 to provide flagging services on all the town projects that we have, be it sidewalk installation, paving, tree removal, things of that nature. We've been using Precise and felt we should bring it to you for a formal approval.
Is this is it typically 50,000? I don't remember.
Usually we have a $25,000 to $50,000 allowance on each paving project, so it'll probably be a little bit more. To be honest with you, I might have to come back again.
Okay.
It varies depending upon right now the police are quite busy with the Eversource work and the Aquarian work, so there's not as many available, for us. So it varies based upon their availability.
So Tiger, this is about what, little under 1,000 hours. Is this for one project, or how long do you think we'll be able to tap into this?
This should go the year or further, we're hoping.
Okay.
Is that in the highway budget or
It's in the road paving budget. Well, it's actually in various budgets, in the sidewalk budget, the road paving budget, the tree budget, things of that nature. So they have to hire a flagger for the tree budget, same exact thing.
It's not budgeted per se.
It's not budget. It's not a line item. No, it's not.
Further questions, Kathleen?
No, thank you.
I move we approve the request from Public Works to enter into a contract with Precise Traffic Control for a total of $50,000 to provide flagging services for the town project when necessary. Second.
Secondary.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so changing gears, this is for the Playhouse Theater Restoration Project. We asked Architectural Preservation Studios for a quote for their work for design services for the restoration. It entails the investigation, architectural design, and administrative services to renovate and restore the interior of the Playhouse. We have a separate contract for the exterior work with Architectural Preservation Studios. They've been an excellent partner while we've been working through the entire process with Cinema Lab. And going forward, we'd like to utilize their services for this work. The contract is $204,000 with a contingency of $30,600 for a total project cost of $234,600. And approximately 20% of these costs will be shared with Cinema Lab as part of their portion of the work inside the building.
Questions?
Is
None here.
remind me, Kevin, is ARPA money being, is this?
$600,000 for
Right.
this. This is all the 750 though from the transfer.
Correct, from the transfer.
Yeah, this is all from the outside project work.
Tiger, what's the timing on this? This project?
No, I'm wrong. This is not the outside project work.
Oh, this is the inside project.
The
work.
inside.
I'm sorry.
Which
So
is,
yes.
which is the $1 million.
$1.6 million.
$1.6 million.
Right.
Yeah.
The $1.6 million that we authorized.
Right.
Right.
It's at least 3 to 6 months to get us to where we need to be to bid. We're hoping to be out to bid somewhere in December, January.
So you bid in December, January, and then,
Start work right away.
and what's the timeline for construction?
At least another 6 months or so, I would imagine. June 1 at best.
That's
June 1, 23.
That's slipping from what we've been talking about.
I understand, but I don't, I also don't want to I don't want to overpromise and then underdeliver. So
What did you?
We're still shooting for April 1.
That's fine.
So if
We
we
shoot
can get
for
out,
April 1.
if we can get out for October 1st, that's why we're approving it today to move it forward.
Yep.
So
It's a great project.
Yes.
questions, Kathleen?
None. Thank you.
I move we approve the request from Public Works to enter into a contract with Architectural Preservation Studio in the total amount of $234,600 for the project work at the Playhouse as described by Tiger. Second,
Second here.
for the discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Let's insert the extra item here, Tiger.
To waive any walkways.
Yep, waving walkways.
Thank you. This is a partnership with the Conservancy. The Conservancy came to us with a concern over the bluestone walkways emanating from the fountain itself, basically north, south, east, west, and specifically the one that headed from the fountain down to the pond itself. They wanted to see that one reconstructed. So we went to Fortino Escalante Incorporated, asked for pricing for the various legs of the work. And we felt that the 2 necessary legs or the 3 necessary legs at present are heading down the hill towards the pond and then from the service area all the way to the gazebo. Because at present that, if we consider the gazebo to be a program or a facility of the town, there are 2 or 3 small steps leading from the service area to the gazebo that would not be ADA compliant. So as part of this process, it would be to reset the bluestone so that it would be at grade and would be flushed the entire way with no steps. So the feeling is to come forward with these 2 sections and then based upon success, come back for phase 2 for the other areas of work. This will entail taking out all the bluestone, saving what we can save, rebedding the entire process, the entire area, then putting the bluestone back and supplementing it with new bluestone for any pieces that are broken or in disrepair. The overall work is $60,930. We added a contingency of $9,100 for a total of $70,030, and the cost will be shared between the Conservancy and the town.
50-50?
Pretty close to 50-50. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty close to 50-50. The town was, if you looked at it's 31,230 to go from the fountain to the pond. That was the Conservancy's portion. And the 29,700 gets us from the parking lot to the gazebo. That was the town's portion. So we're almost 50-50.
Questions?
None here.
I'm here.
I move we approve the request from Public Works to enter into a contract with Fortino Escalante Inc. for a total of $70,030 as described by Tiger for the replacement or restoration of the bluestone walkways. Second,
Second here.
the discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you, Tiger. Okay, that brings us to the library loan.
Received one comment about the library loan portion that, would you like it read into the record? or-
Sure. Well, go ahead.
Yes. It's from Charles Robinson. Reference is made to that certain public-private partnership agreement. New Canaan Library, Inc., Library Building dated October 15th, 2021, and particularly section 11 thereof. Please inform me whether the construction loan agreement and note for the New Canaan Library Construction Loan Facility, which are the subject of this meeting's agenda item number 9, expressly include the prospective language contained in the public-private partnership agreement, New Canaan Library dated October 15th, 2021, and particularly section 11 hereof. Additionally, section 1 of the bond resolution, which is the subject of this meeting's agenda item 10, should properly refer to the executed and effective public-private partnership agreement, New Canaan Library, Inc., dated October 15, 2021, and not to an unexecuted draft document that had previously been referred to as a memorandum of understanding. Thank you in advance for directly and precisely addressing the foregoing question and point of correction. Charles Robinson.
Okay, I don't really understand the question, but let me emphasize this. We're passing on a draft today to the Board of Finance and then the Town Council. Bob, do you want to come up to the table and join us? Good morning, Bob Butman, President of the Board of the Library. And so my understanding still, Bob, with your cash flow is you don't expect to begin borrowing October, probably?
That's correct.
So we don't need to get this approved by September until September. But since we've done the work in the past, 4 months to get the documentation in place, and we provided a draft agreement to the library and the library's council, and you had virtually no comments. The only comment really was to be absolutely clear that this money is only for the new building. It doesn't involve funding donors to any 1913 project. It's only for the new building, correct?
That is correct.
So as this is a draft, I'm satisfied with it. It's this board's responsibility and me to be satisfied with the documentation on a deal. This board is responsible for the relationship with the library on an operating basis. So all we're doing today is passing this draft on to the Board of Finance. If they decide to take it up tonight, that's their business. If they decide to wait for a second meeting in August, that's their business. I'd like to get it to the Town Council to get it done with, but if we're just passing it on. I think we're satisfied with the draft, and we can, by the way, so we can also make any changes. I don't know what Charlie Robinson's comment involves. We can also make any changes that are necessary with the town attorney's approval. And with this will come back to us either in 2 weeks or a month or two to finalize. And any changes we need to agree to, we will. So
right. So just as an update, it's my understanding that the agreement we refer to as letter of credit or the construction loan agreement is 98% complete, and that the final draft will be submitted by our attorney to the town's attorney today. So
final suggested draft, and then we'll.
Yeah, exactly. And then that will be passed along to the Board of Finance this evening. It's also my understanding that they would want a final executable version to look at and review prior to making a vote on that agreement. So at this point, we're 99% there. Most of the changes that were suggested by our attorney are more factual corrections or points of clarification in the agreement. And it appears that both attorneys have worked through very quickly what changes were necessary. So hopefully that will all be in place by this afternoon.
Well, we're approving a draft that's before us. We can't approve anything else.
Yeah.
So if the Board of Finance wants to make any further changes, we can.
I think Charlie, I think based upon what Tucker was reading, Charlie just wanted to make sure that the resolution references the MOU, which it does.
The resolution or the agreement?
No, the resolution.
But we're not on the resolution right now.
We're on the contract.
We're on the contract.
No, but I think Charlie was talking about, I'm responding to Charlie's comment about the resolution. And my only comment is that we might want to incorporate.
We're not in the resolution right now. We're on this item.
No, I know that, but I'm jumping ahead and responding to Charlie's comment because I just, it's all part of the same thing. The loan agreement, I'm good with.
Okay, but let's deal with that, and then we'll move on to item 10. Because I have further discussion about.
And actually, he said it was item 9, but now item 10. So
9 and 10. He referenced.
Right.
Okay. Anyway, anything we need to do to finalize?
Couple questions.
Go ahead, Kathleen.
So just a couple questions. This might be, if Ann's in the room, really a question about just how this works in terms of the loan. So I understand it would be a taxable bond. Is that correct?
Kathleen, let me address that as part of item 10. Okay,
Okay.
there's two separate items here. One is the agreement and the other item is a bond resolution, which may or may not be used.
Okay. I see. Okay. So on maybe then the agreement, just how that works in terms of determining what the interest rate is. Again, maybe it's part of the resolution or the bond or not. But so if we set a rate and then it's subsequently funded by a bond, if there's any sort of difference in terms of rates increasing, is there an adjustment to the interest rate on the construction loan?
So the MOU calls for us charging our cost of funds plus 0.25%, I believe.
Correct.
Defining our cost of funds is the trick, because if we do a series of 5-year notes, the cost of funds becomes kind of a blended rate. So, and also if there's a prepayment, I think prepayment is unlikely, but prepayment could cause us to have some breakage in terms of notes outstanding that we borrowed and they prepay us. So the notion is the cost of funds. However, we have to describe that.
There's no prepayment penalty in the existing.
Right.
Just as point of clarification. And that's the objective of what we're trying to do. We're trying to pay this thing off as quickly as possible.
That's why we're actually considering not bonding it and just paying it out, using our general fund. So,
so one thing you should know with respect to the timing of all this is that we're probably around 7 million short now of our stated goal of fundraising with respect to the new building, separating the legacy building completely.
Is that?
And that's the number that is part of this bond resolution to fill that gap. Now, we don't anticipate between, using that full amount because we expect to continue to fundraise between now and year end. And I think the drawdown was scheduled for January, February of next year based on the cash flow projections that we gave you. So, if we don't raise another nickel between now and year end, then theoretically we would be drawing down probably the full 7 million, but it's highly unlikely. It's highly unlikely.
And to be clear, the original ask was
13, 1/3 of the project.
We've gone from 13 to 7.
They always anticipated they were going to need bridge financing for the pledges that are multi-year pledges.
Bob, maybe just one other question in terms of the legacy project, when do you expect to have that determined in terms of funding, et cetera?
So we've separated out the legacy project completely from the new building project and any borrowings that would be required. So that'll be a subsequent discussion we'll have with town. But at this point in time, we're doing all the legwork, if you will, with respect to the architects, the engineering, design, and taking care of that ourselves. And then at some point, we're going to have to either do additional fundraising for the legacy building or, go to town and expect to get, a separate letter of credit to handle that funding.
So you're expending resources, excuse me, now with respect to the 1913.
So in order to keep the project on schedule, this is the new building project.
The new building.
New building project.
What needs to be done to accommodate?
There's quite a bit of prep work that has to be done well before next February when, that building will be moved up the hill. So it requires engineering, it requires site work, it requires planning and preparation for presenting to P&Z our plans. And all that's been going on now for the last 2 months.
When do you start demoing stuff?
Okay, if we stayed on plan, then the new building would be 100% complete by year end, let's say January. And then in February, we would be moving into that building. And at that point, going forward would be the demolition of the old.
You'd start moving the books and everything over.
Exactly.
I mean, that's tentative schedule, but we're ahead of schedule. The new building is about 40% complete now. And, we're meeting all milestones. So there's no reason to believe that we're going to fall behind unless weather or something comes into play.
Bob, on the timeline, when are you thinking of presenting to P and Z
Sometime this fall,
for the legacy project
sometime this fall.
this fall?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to nail it down to a specific month because there's a lot of stuff that has to be done between now and then.
No, just.
But, we're
Mhm.
getting all that work completed as quickly as possible.
So there are people working on the legacy project.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Centerbrook architects are working on design issues. Kohler Ronan and others are working on engineering issues. There's other things that have to be done, and we're going to be meeting with Wolf Construction, who we've tentatively hired to move the building very shortly. So.
Further questions?
None here.
So again, for item 9, we're approving a draft agreement to move it on to the Board of Finance and the Town Council. If it changes, we will take it up again in 2 weeks or 2 months and finalize it. So I move we approve the draft construction loan agreement and the note as set forth on our tablets.
Second here.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Kathleen? Aye. Okay. That's unanimous.
Aye. Yep.
Now, on the library construction loan bond resolution, we've in the past few days been talking about the possibility of not bonding this. So we're going to, again, approve this to move it on to the Board of Finance. They will decide whether what they want to bond it.
And the reasoning being
Because
rates.
because we can probably do it a lot more cheaply for the library and
Out of the general fund?
out of the general fund with money that is earning far less than we're going to charge the library. So
we like that.
Yeah. So our cost of funds would be redefined if we, but it would probably be comparable to what a taxable note would. We'd have to issue taxable notes to fund this facility. And so simply to move this on to the Board of Finance, and they will move it on to the Town Council if they decide either tonight or a month from now, whenever they decide to move it forward. It's a typical in this case, $7 million bond authorization and we would anticipate doing this in 1 or 2 5-year notes over the next two years. So
this may or may not be.
Used.
Right.
It's an
Again, my only comment is just date the MOU, which gets to Charlie's comment.
Okay.
Tucker read.
We can make any correcting changes because by the time it gets to the Town Council, the resolution, they will have to approve. We'll have to publish it. And okay, so with that, I move we approve this draft bond resolution to move it to the Board of Finance.
Second here.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
That brings us to the end of our agenda, except for comments. I have a few comments. One, the Silver Hill Hospital Assessment Service started yesterday with the ARPA funds that we gave to Silver Hill. That is a very exciting opportunity for us to help our residents who are in need of immediate assessment for behavioral health issues. It'll be interesting to see how that unfolds in the next few weeks. The health department, as we've announced, has relocated to Irwin House for the next 3 or 4 weeks while Van Conn just paid it. They will continue their vaccination and boosters and testing out of Irwin only, so that rapid tests will be done at Irwin. And also, let's see, we may suspend testing in August, but let's see how the next few weeks develop. Also, Russ Kimes started last week as our full-time emergency management director. And then I also wanted to, I was planning a discussion today because we have to get this current population educated as to what everyone in town was educated about on cell service. That's why I encourage you to look at what is on the website. In August of 16, this Board of Selectmen had selected and agreed to a master lease with Homeland Towers. Homeland Towers has been doing what we asked them to do. The Soundview Lane Tower, which is on private residential property, was essentially took 5 years from the beginning of discussions to the operation of the AT&T antennas. Verizon has not yet, nor has T-Mobile put their antennas on that tower. So people are questioning, let's wait to see what the carrier's actual performance is in that location. There's no question there's a need in the northeast part of town. As far as the northwest, I'll be happy to address questions that were raised earlier this morning. The person who stepped forward to invest in the property is a philanthropic person, and it is not being done for the money, so to speak. We need a cell tower in the northwest corner of town. That location, I worked for over a year planning a cell tower in the town right away across from 1837 Honus, and when that property became available, it was an opportunity to have a better location for the tower, and that's a necessary location. If Homeland Towers and I have scoured the neighborhoods looking for available properties, if there's no institutional property to use, and that brings us back down to the west and east side of town. There are negotiations that are close to being finalized with respect to a tower on the east side of town, because recall the Utilities Commission, really Tom Teslick was the only member of the Utilities Commission that knew anything about cell service, but he had a plan that was put forth based upon the recommendations of Cityscape in Florida, and the analysis done by Centerline. The Centerline analysis really hasn't changed much. Cell tower service doesn't improve with age. And if there was a new technology, believe me, I'd be all for it. There is no new technology. You also have to, ask yourself if Verizon is willing to spend $500,000 on a location to serve their customers. They probably need the service. They have to prove to the siting council they need the service. And they also don't, put up towers that they don't need. So the notion that anybody thinks that tower companies, or in this case, I think Homeland has to spend about $750,000 for the base station, but each carrier spends about $500,000 on their antennas at a location. I've been working with the Country Club and Verizon for the past 3 years to get Verizon added to the tower at the Country Club. That's agreed in principle. It's just a matter of pushing them to move forward. They all said they want to do it.
Does that mean a
They're going to
increase in the height?
They're going to replace that tower. So it's very important that everybody understand where we've been in the last 25 years. I would remind people that the reason after that agreement with Homeland Towers was put in place in August of 2016, it was soon after that Aquarian came and said they were going to paint the water tank at Waveney, and they didn't want the cell antennas on there. So Homeland Towers worked for almost a year in 2017 to plan a cell tower at Waveney Park. That was what was planned as of the end of 2017. And when I came into office, I talked to Aquarian, and Aquarian agreed not to stop hosting the antennas there. So that was a major win for us to move forward. The plan that Tom Teslick put forth to this Board of Selectmen called for 5 or 6 cell towers. If I didn't think we needed these cell towers, I wouldn't be working on them. This is a very serious discussion we have to have about the future of this town to understand where the opportunities are for the west, east, and center of town. So that's the discussion we need to have. I will talk to the town council next week, because as you may recall, the town council pushed in 2015 when I was on the town council. Kathleen was on the town council, that we pushed the Board of Selectmen to move forward on solving the cell service problem. And so I think the town council has a serious interest in this solution. So that's the conversation we need to have. It's a very serious discussion, and not just for our first responders, but for the safety of our residents. And and we can't play politics with this issue. This is a very serious topic. So that being what I have to say, do you want to offer any comments?
If I may. Kevin, thank you for that update. I absolutely agree. We have to be doing lots of due diligence and communication. Education is very important, transparency and the like. You had mentioned 2 weeks ago, I believe, on the potentially announcing something that might happen on the east side. How close are you to sharing that information?
Again, you know, when it comes to non-town property, I'm not involved. I'm just I'm aware.
Okay, so this would be for non-town.
Non-town property. Yeah. I know the principals involved, so I talked to them, and Homeland Towers tells me they have fruitful discussions, but you know, when it comes to private property, I'm not involved directly. I know.
Okay.
I know it's very likely this is going to come forward, and I really want it to happen at the same time as this discussion about the west location. You know, again, the other thing that changed, when I met with Verizon in January or February 2018, they said, Kevin, we have no money for coverage in New Canaan. We only have money for capacity, and that's mainly in the cities. And they said, you know, and they haven't invested. Verizon hasn't invested anything in the last 5 years in New Canaan. They've committed to the Soundview Lane Tower. They haven't installed their equipment. They're committing to the 1837 Ponus location. They have not built their tower as they were authorized to at the Armory. AT&T built and is operating from the Armory, but the Verizon has a authorization from the Siting Council to build a second 140-foot tower at the Armory location on state property. So all these things are what's been going on for the past 5 years under the authorization that this Board of Selectmen gave in August of 2016 to Homeland Towers to go out and solve this problem for us. And you know, I welcome the opportunity.
I watched the video
to find a viable alternative location to the 47 acres the town owns. I did talk personally to the Winter Club, to the country school, to the land trust about their property on Davenport Ridge, and then Homeland talked to Playland Camp. Is that the name of it? And you know, again, it's one thing for us to say, how about this location? But then when the carriers look at it and say it doesn't work for their radio frequency needs, you know, we can't tell them where to locate a tower. And I would remind you that, you know, this location, just like St. Luke's was for years and years, the carriers had their sites on St. Luke's. They talked to St. Luke's for years and years. I know that personally from Dick Whitcomb and others who are on the board at St. Luke's. So that was a fact. And then the AT&T proposed antennas on the water tank at South West School in 2010. The town council turned down. This tower location would be 483 feet from the school. And so we have to have a very serious discussion about this topic. Yeah.
I agree. Kevin, can I just add one more question? Yeah. Utility Commission. And again, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. It's still on the website. There's 3 members that are listed. Is that still in existence? Is that something that, I mean, I would think that it makes a lot of sense, particularly given this whole topic, that they are maybe resurrected and involved and engaged in this process?
Well, on that topic, Kathleen, the only person that knew anything about cell service was Tom Teslick. He resigned the day after the election in 2017. You know, I don't know why. He had created a plan which I fully 100% supported. It's the plan that Homeland Towers is executing for us. The reality is the utilities, when it comes to telephone, which is largely moving to cell service. Cell service is not actually a regulated utility, unlike the landlines that Frontier acquired from AT&T. In 2000, I think virtually every household in Canaan had a landline. So when we had an emergency, people could make a call. You know, the statistics these days, many people forego landlines unless they're required for their security systems. And more than 70% of 911 calls are made by cell phones. So but the utilities, the water company, and the electric utility, Eversource and Eversource Gas now. The reality is we as a staff, Tiger and Tucker and I work with the utilities all the time on a regular basis. So the need for a utilities commission, I think, changed. It was dormant for almost 10 years before it was resurrected in 2011, 12. And it was given 2 missions at the time, 3 missions. One was natural gas, which we solved. Second was cell service, which Tom Teslick did for almost 5 years. We're executing on that plan. And I think their 3rd mission was solar. And we've done more with solar than ever was done with the Utilities Commission. So I think the need for a Utilities Commission, in my view, is not there, and you really need the right experts. That's why when we created the Technology Advisory Committee, I had Mike Abbott, who his prior bosses had been the CEO of Verizon and the CEO of AT&T. He was working on a joint venture with them. He knew them personally, and I thought he could be helpful on the 5G issue. 5G is not an issue for New Canaan because we're still working on coverage with 4G. And but the point is,
I would just,
yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, Kevin, thank you. I would just say we have a lot of talent in this town, and 6 years have passed since the 2016 review. So I would recommend that, we consider the utility commission that we have and whether or not we can get talent, volunteer talent who can join us. I think there'd be some greater resources that are in town that we can leverage. And I think having the body of a commission would certainly help with this process.
I agree.
So that would be my recommendation.
I agree with Selectman Corbett. I mean, I think that if, we have a utilities commission, and if we want to get rid of it, then get rid of it.
Yeah, I think in next charter review, I'd recommend we get rid of the Utilities Commission.
I would.
Actually, it's not a charter commission.
Yeah.
It's an ordinance commission.
But
And
it's still
that's
in
why
the books.
the town council can.
I
would
you mentioned
recommend
you and Tiger and Tucker, all employees of the town. I think it would be helpful. We get 20,000 incredible people in this town, and I think the talent is out there.
Yeah, I don't.
Support.
But my point is, we work with the utilities all the time.
Well, you work with the utilities. I mean,
No, I don't.
You
Tucker does and
okay.
Tiger does.
Okay, again,
yeah.
town employees.
I would recommend that the town
I would
council.
recommend that we have non-town employees, looking things over and making recommendations. I don't see how this is any different than, Conservation Commission, all the boards and commissions that we have.
Well,
this is important stuff. We had a room packed today with constituents voicing their opinions, and I think it would be nice to have an independent voice.
But there was
not part of the town.
There was never an independent voice. It was one person, just like Jeb Walker had Jeff.
Okay, well,
so
we can do better than one person.
Well, again, the reality is we hired Homeland Towers to do a mission. And if we want to tell Homeland Towers we don't want that anymore, that's a very crucial decision for the future of New Canaan. So
I don't see this as what you're mixing apples and oranges. I think Homeland Towers should have been hired, has been hired, and will continue to be hired. I am saying, and I think Selectman Corbett agrees, but I'm not going to speak for her. It would be helpful to have an independent voice with volunteer townspeople weighing in on issues like where we put cell phone towers.
Well, okay, I don't agree, and
we respectfully agree to disagree.
Any further comments?
Done for me. Thank you.
Okay, I move we adjourn at 10:27.
Second here.
Aye.
Enjoy Alaska.
I will. Thank you. And we are 4 hours behind.